Welcome back to Critter Corner. Last month we talked about birds, and this month I'd like to talk a little bit about reptiles. One of the things that makes the reptile category of pets really unique is that they cannot regulate their own body temperature. They need to warm and cool themselves by using their environment. That means that their environment in your home has to mimic their natural environment for them to stay healthy. That makes things quite a bit of a challenge. There's a lot of information out there on the market that can be conflicting, sometimes confusing, and a lot of times there's no real help. When you go to the pet store, they'll sell you product, but they don't necessarily teach you how to use that product. So majority of those animals that come to see us, whether it's a snake, lizard, turtle, tortoise, we end up going over what you're doing at home in extensive detail, because somewhere around 95% of the animals that come to us are sick because there's some stress in their environment. If the temperature zone is not correct, their humidity is not correct, that can literally wear down their immune system, so that the first thing we see, the first sign something's wrong, is your animal stops eating or isn't eating as well. The second sign is they may not shed or shed well. There's something called a retained shed, where the skin does not come off their body the way it's supposed to. And that's another sign something's wrong. If you wait too long, your pet will get sick and develop a secondary infection or secondary illness that can make it harder for them to recover. So we want to make sure that you do your research before you pick up that cute little lizard at the store. You do not want to rely on the pet store employee. I think pet store employees work hard, but it's really hard for them to know everything they need to know. So you have to do some research on your own. Find a good veterinarian that can help you navigate what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. If you schedule an appointment to have a veterinarian who works with reptiles, look at your reptile to make sure it's healthy. They're going to go over everything you're doing at home, or they should, to make sure what you're doing is going to support that animal in the very best way. The more problems we have with the environment, the more stress that places on the animal, and the more chances we are that it's not going to thrive. There are those lizards, those snakes that do what we call their poor doers. They just don't thrive. And what I mean by that is you could have an environment that's pretty close to what they need, and one group of animals are going to thrive and do great, and then you're going to have those poor doers that stresses just too much. That little bitty thing that we missed is enough to make them sick. And so the poor doers are devastating to owners because we feel a lot of guilt that we did something wrong. But you need to keep in mind that these animals are really victims of the pet industry. They are animals that probably should not be bred in the numbers they are, sold in the stores in the numbers that they are, and it puts you, the owner, at a disadvantage. So if you're thinking about owning a reptile, we have to help you with your homework. Things you need to look at include a temperature zone. Every animal needs a cool to warm temperature zone. Your enclosure needs to provide that, almost to the buttons. So you need to know what heating sources are available to you. You need to make sure you have thermometers that you can put in that cage that will constantly monitor that temperature. Because in New England, it gets cold in our homes, and the heat will leach out of that pet's environment, and those thermometers are going to drop. You need to be able to mitigate that. You need a humidity monitor. You need to know what reptile products are on the market in terms of calcium supplements and multivitamin supplements. They need to get into your animal on a regular basis. So you need to know which products, how often. You also need to know what's the ideal diet for your animal. If you're not feeding a balanced diet, we see critters all the time that get stuck on eating junk food, food that's not great for them, and then we can't transition into something that's better for them because they'll be stubborn and then they won't eat. So it's important that you are aware. Reptiles have very specific needs. The pet store may not set you up with what you need in order to give that animal the best environment that it should, and you really need to do your research. If you have any questions about your reptile or about owning a reptile, we are happy to help.